Alan Watts' Radical Guide to Experiencing Life Fully, Start Today. Let's begin with a thought so powerful it might shake the very ground beneath your feet. What if everything you were taught about how to live life was wrong? Not just slightly off, but entirely, fundamentally mistaken. You see, in the modern world, we're conditioned to chase goals, chase happiness, chase meaning, like it's some prize at the end of a long, grueling race. But what if the race was never real? What if the finish line doesn't even exist? That's where Alan Watts comes in, the philosopher who dared to turn it all upside down. He didn't just challenge the game, he flipped the board over and laughed at the idea of playing at all. Imagine this, you're sitting in traffic, tense, checking your phone, worrying. You're thinking about the meeting you're late for, the bills you have to pay, the texts you forgot to reply to. Now pause. What are you actually doing? Nothing but sitting in a metal box on wheels. The rest, all the stress, the pressure, that's in your mind. Watts would say, you are under the illusion that you have to justify your existence. And that is the root of our suffering. We've been sold a lie that we must earn our right to be here, that life is about achieving, becoming, proving. But Watts flips the narrative. Life is not a problem to be solved, it is a reality to be experienced.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
This is where the radical part begins. He invites us to look at life not as a journey with a destination, but as a dance. Nobody dances to reach the end of the song. We dance to dance. We sing to sing. So why do we live to get somewhere? Have you ever asked yourself, why am I rushing through my own life? That question sits at the heart of this journey, because until we stop running, we'll never see what's already here, and what's here is everything. Now I want you to do something. Picture a cat. Not just any cat, but one lounging in a sunbeam, eyes half closed, purring. That cat is not worried about tomorrow. It's not reflecting on its past mistakes or planning its next move on LinkedIn. It is fully present, fully alive, and it's not even trying. Watts often pointed to nature as the ultimate teacher. Trees don't strain to grow, rivers don't force their flow, birds don't plan their songs, they just are. And in that being, they are complete. So why do we feel so incomplete? Because we are taught to be someone. From the moment we are born, we are given a name, an identity, a role. Student, worker, parent, success story, failure. But Watts says, trying to define yourself is like trying to bite your own teeth. The self we think we are is just a story, a collection of patterns, habits, and memories, and yet we cling to it like a life raft. But what if you let go? What if you stopped trying to be someone and just were? Here's where it gets deep, really deep. Watts believed that the sense of separation we feel from others, from nature, even from ourselves, is an illusion. He often said, you are the universe experiencing itself. Not metaphorically, literally. The same energy that burns in the stars flows through your veins. The same intelligence that unfurls a fern in spring beats your heart without your permission. You are not in the universe, you are it. So when you dull yourself in routine, when you shrink into roles, when you forget your own aliveness, you're not just cheating yourself, you're denying the cosmos its moment of reflection. But let's ground this in something practical. You might be thinking, okay, cool ideas, but how do I actually live this? Watts wouldn't hand you a 5-step plan. He'd say, start by noticing. When you eat, taste. When you walk, feel your feet on the ground. When you listen to music, don't analyze, just hear. The act of paying attention is the doorway to awakening, because when you really look at life, not as a means to an end, but as a miracle unfolding in real time, everything changes. You stop waiting for the weekend. You stop living for the next vacation. You start being here. Let me ask you something radical. What if there is no purpose to life except to live it fully? No grand mission, no final reward, just this moment, and this one, and this one. How would that change the way you wake up tomorrow? And that brings us to a truth few dare to face. You will never be more alive than you are right now. You may grow in skill, in knowledge, in wealth, but your fundamental aliveness, it's already here. It doesn't increase when you get that job or that partner or that house. It's not something you achieve, it's something you notice. And once you do, you realize the game you've been playing of climbing ladders, chasing goals, proving yourself was just that. A game. You can keep playing it, sure, but now you'll play with your eyes open. The illusion of control and the freedom in letting go. We live in a world obsessed with control. From the moment we start our day, we check calendars, set alarms, draft to-do lists, and constantly try to predict, manage, and manipulate life. We cling to the idea that if we just plan well enough, work hard enough, if we're smart and strategic, we can shape reality to our liking. And yet, how often does life go exactly as planned? How many times have you faced something completely unexpected, good or bad, that altered everything? Alan Watts saw this obsession with control as the great tragedy of modern life. Why? Because it blinds us to the beauty of surrender. It convinces us that we are separate from the flow of existence and that we must fight it rather than move with it. Have you ever stood in the ocean and tried to stop the waves? It's absurd, yet that's what we do every day. We resist change. We fear uncertainty. We try to force outcomes, and in doing so, we suffer. Not because life is cruel, but because we're trying to make it something it's not. Watts would tell us, life is like water. Try to grasp it, and it slips through your fingers. Cup your hands and it fills you. There is a wisdom in letting go, a deeper intelligence that comes not from controlling, but from trusting. This isn't about being passive or giving up. It's about realizing that life is not a machine to be engineered, but a process to be danced with. Think about it. Most of our anxiety comes from trying to control what we cannot. We worry about the future, about how others see us, about whether we'll succeed or fail. But what if we could drop that weight? What if we could live like the ocean, deep, fluid, ever-changing, but never afraid of the tide? Watts often said, the more a thing tends to be permanent, the more it tends to be lifeless. Our quest for stability is actually a quest for stagnation. Life is alive because it's in flux. Everything is moving. Your body, your thoughts, your relationships, the stars in the sky, none of it stands still. So why should your life? Here's a practical paradox. The moment you let go of controlling life, you actually become more powerful within it. Why? Because now you're aligned with it. You're not resisting the river. You're swimming with its current. You stop wasting energy on meaningless battles and begin to engage with what is. This is the essence of presence. And presence is power. When you're fully here, not trapped in the mind's projections or fears, you gain clarity. You respond rather than react. You adapt. You move with grace. You begin to live creatively, not mechanically. But letting go is terrifying, isn't it? Because it means embracing the unknown. It means admitting that we don't have all the answers. It means stepping into the mystery. And yet, what if the mystery is the point? What if the unknown isn't something to be feared, but something to be explored? Watts would laugh at our insistence on certainty. He'd say, to have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, you don't grab hold of the water, because if you do, you will sink and drown. Instead, you relax and float. So ask yourself, where in your life are you gripping so tightly that you're drowning? What would happen if you loosened your grip? What if you allowed things to unfold without forcing them? You might discover that the very thing you were trying to control was already taking care of itself, that events had a rhythm, a timing, a wisdom beyond your own, that your role was not to dominate but to participate. Life doesn't need micromanagement. It needs your attention, your openness, your willingness to meet it freshly, moment by moment. This is where freedom lives, not in having everything go your way, but in being okay either way. True freedom isn't external. It's not a lifestyle, a bank account, or a passport stamp. It's internal. It's the ability to be with life as it is, to laugh even when it's uncertain, to dance even when the music changes, to be here now without needing it to be different. That's the radical freedom Alan Watts spoke of. It's not flashy, it's not Instagrammable, but it's real, and it's available anytime we choose to stop resisting and start allowing. So, here's a question for you. What parts of your life are you trying to control out of fear? And what would happen, not hypothetically but actually, if you began to trust those parts more? Not blindly, not naively, but with the understanding that life has been unfolding long before you were born and will continue long after you're gone. You are a ripple in a vast sea, and the more you trust the sea, the more beautifully you'll ripple. The myth of the separate self and the truth of interbeing. There's a belief so deeply embedded in our culture that we rarely notice it. It's the idea that you are separate, an isolated self, sealed off from the world around you, moving through life like a lone traveler in a foreign land. This belief shapes how we see ourselves, how we relate to others, how we make decisions. And yet, Alan Watts spent his life dismantling this illusion. He argued that the concept of the individual self, it is not only misleading, it's the root of our deepest confusion and suffering. Think of how we define ourselves. We say, I am this body, I am this name, I am this job, this background, these memories. But what happens when we dig a little deeper? Where do you end and the world begin? Is it your skin? But your skin breathes. It absorbs and releases. Your lungs pull in the air. Your stomach digests food. Your senses take in the environment moment by moment. You are not closed off. You are porous, constantly exchanging with the world. Watts once said, "You didn't come into this world, You came out of it like a wave from the ocean. You are not a stranger here. That changes everything. If this is true, if we are not isolated but expressions of the whole, then the entire notion of separation collapses. You are not separate from the tree outside your window. You are not separate from the stranger walking past you. You are not even separate from the stars. You are part of a single, unimaginably vast process, life, unfolding itself in infinite forms. What's called this infinite being, not as a poetic idea, but as a literal truth. We are the universe, temporarily appearing as human beings. And when you really feel that, not just intellectually but viscerally, it rearranges your entire sense of identity. But here's where it gets interesting. Most of our suffering comes from clinging to the small self, the ego, the story of me. And this story is fragile. It constantly feels threatened. It needs to be defended, praised, validated. It gets jealous, anxious, lonely. Why? Because it believes it's alone. And anything alone must survive. It must compete. It must win. But what if that self is just a mask? What if your true nature is something far more expansive? When we believe we are separate, we live in fear. We fear loss, rejection, death. But when we realize we are part of it all, something shifts. We no longer need to dominate or control. We no longer need to prove ourselves. We can relax into the flow of life, knowing we are not isolated drops, but the ocean in motion. This is not about giving up your uniqueness. It's about understanding where your uniqueness comes from. You are not a static object. You are a process, a verb, not a noun. You are not being a self. You are selfing. And that selfing is connected to everything else happening in the universe. So how do we live this truth practically? First, we start observing the mind. Notice how often it says me, mine, I. Watch how it reacts to being ignored, criticized, or left out. That voice is not who you are. It's a pattern, a survival mechanism. And once you see it clearly, you don't have to believe it. You can smile at it, even love it, but you don't have to obey it. You can choose to act from connection, not fear, from wholeness, not lack. Second, begin to see others not as others, but as reflections of yourself. When someone is kind to you, it's life being kind to itself. When someone is cruel, it's still life. Misguided, perhaps, but not alien. Everyone is doing what they can with the level of awareness they have. This doesn't mean we condone harm, but we understand it. We meet it with compassion, not judgment. Because judgment strengthens the illusion of separation, compassion dissolves it. Third, spend time in nature. Not just walking through it distracted, but with it. Sit under a tree, watch a bird, feel the wind. These are not things outside of you. They are you in a different form. They are your family, your mirror, your origin. Nature doesn't rush, doesn't worry, doesn't strive. It just is. And in its being, it teaches us how to return to our own being. Let me ask you something that might echo in your mind for days. What would your life look like if you no longer believed you were separate? How would you treat people? How would you treat yourself? How would you move through the world if you knew, with every cell in your body, that you were not alone, but part of something vast, intelligent, and alive? This is not a mystical fantasy, it's the reality we've forgotten. And when we remember it, when we embody it, something extraordinary happens. We become less afraid, we become more open, we begin to live not as isolated fragments, but as the whole, waking up to itself. And that, perhaps, is what life has been waiting for all along, the final illusion. Chasing meaning versus living meaningfully. Let's face the ultimate question, the one that quietly haunts so many of us, whether we admit it or not. What is the meaning of life? From ancient philosophers to modern self-help gurus, from spiritual seekers to everyday people lying awake at night, we've all asked it. We want to know, why am I here? What's the point of all of this? But Alan Watts, with his signature mix of humor and clarity, flips the question on its head. He asks, why do you assume life must have a meaning in the first place? Think about it. A song doesn't exist to get somewhere. If it did, we'd only listen to the final note. A dance isn't about the last step. A painting isn't meant to prove a point. Yet we treat our lives like linear tasks, like there's a destination we have to reach, some ultimate purpose we must achieve to justify our existence. What cuts through that illusion? The meaning of life is just to be alive. It is so plain and so obvious and so simple. And yet, everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. We've been conditioned to chase meaning as if it's hiding somewhere in the future. We attach it to goals, roles, identities, and we say, once I succeed, then life will make sense. Once I find love or build a legacy or reach enlightenment, then I'll understand. But here's the paradox. The more we chase meaning, the more it eludes us. Because meaning isn't a destination, it's not out there waiting, it's here in the way we live, breathe, and show up right now. You don't find meaning, you create it, you live it, you embody it. And that changes everything. Suddenly, the small moments matter. The way you greet a stranger, the way you listen to your friend, the way you make your morning tea. These are not distractions from some grand purpose. They are the grand purpose. Life isn't asking you to solve it, it's asking you to participate in it. And the more fully you do, the more deeply meaningful it becomes, not because you finally figured it out, but because you stopped needing to. Watts reminds us that we're not on a journey with a prize at the end. We are the prize. We are the dance. And when we stop trying to make life into something else, we finally begin to live it, fully, courageously, presently. So instead of asking, what is the meaning of life, maybe we should ask, what kind of life feels meaningful to me? And then live that, not tomorrow, today. But this requires honesty, brutal honesty, because deep down many of us are living lives we don't even believe in. We're following scripts handed down by society, by family, by fear. We're chasing things we don't even want, hoping they'll give us something they never can: peace, fulfillment, freedom. Watts would say, stop measuring days by degree of productivity and start experiencing them by degree of presence. So ask yourself, are you living a life that's truly yours, or just performing a role you were told to play? To live meaningfully is to live authentically. Not perfectly, not without fear, but honestly. It means showing up as you are, not as who you think you should be. It means trusting your own rhythms. It means saying yes to the mystery, the mess, the beauty of being alive. It means laughing in the face of the unknown, not because it's safe, but because it's real. And in that realness, we find something deeper than meaning. We find aliveness. Look around, right now, wherever you are. This moment will never happen again. You will never be exactly who you are, where you are, with what you know, ever again. That's not a tragedy, that's the gift. Life isn't waiting to begin after you finish your checklist, it's happening now. And the more you see that, the more the pressure begins to dissolve. The more you stop striving to matter and start being what already matters. Conscious, present, awake. Let me leave you with a final question, one that Watts would have delighted in. If you knew that life had no fixed meaning, no final answer, no ultimate purpose, would that free you or frighten you? And if it frightens you, what part of you is still trying to hold on to control, certainty, or identity? What part of you is still afraid to simply be? Because in the end, the radical guide to experiencing life fully isn't about changing your circumstances. It's about shifting your relationship to them. It's about remembering that you are life. Not a bystander, not a victim, not a seeker. Life is not something happening to you. It's something happening as you. So don't wait. Don't wait for clarity or permission or the perfect moment. You won't find it. You'll only find this moment. And if you meet it fully, without armor, without expectation, you'll discover what Watts spent his life pointing toward, that the miracle is not in the answers, but in the experience itself. You are the dance, you are the wave, you are the universe, awake and aware for a brief, astonishing moment. And that is more than enough.